of the Maimer that we're learning all last week. It's a Maimer of Baha'alotcha, but despite the fact that it's a Maimer of Baha'alotcha, it really talks a lot about the idea of Matan Torah. And we were speaking about a Maimer Chazal that the Rebbe Marash brings concerning that if there's a level of Atom Meshamer Esneri, Ani Meshamer Esnercha, there's the Neir of Hashem, which is the Torah, and there's the Neir of the Yid, which is his Nefesh, and Hashem guards our Nefesh. And we spoke about it doesn't mean just sustains our life, but brings up our Nefesh to a higher level than it was before it came down here, through the fact that we bring the Torah up to a higher level than it was before it was down here. And we explained this. This is similar to the idea of a Merkava, that the chariot, on the one hand, the chariot doesn't have a level of love. It's a level of bittul. The chariot does not have a love for its rider, but it has a bittul to its rider. And therefore, even the love that the Yidden have, that they received from the Avostar, the Merkava, it has in it also a concealed level, a level of bittul of the Merkava, and yet still in all, there's still a higher level of Merkava than that. But more than that, the Merkava brings the Roichiv to a place that he wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. And that's what it means that the Chayes Nefane HaKodesh raise up the Adam of Bria to a higher level, and the Merkava of the Avis raise up the level of Adam the Atzilus to a level of Loy Adam. So it's not just that Merkava is about the bittul of the Merkava to the Roichiv, and that we have a bittul to Hashem, but through our bittul, we reach to a level of being Meshamer Es Neiri, or Kiyum HaTorah, meaning the idea of bringing the Torah up to a higher level, bringing Elokus to a higher level, just like a Merkava brings the rider to a higher place. And to explain that, we went into the idea that it says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did not leave behind davar gadol v'davar katan, not a major thing and not a minor thing. And we spoke about a major thing is the idea of Maisa Merkava, and that is because what we just now read, what we just now explained, that the Maisa Merkava carries and brings up things to a higher level, and that higher level is called Gadol, because that's Arich Ampin, as opposed to the originating place of the Adam is the Eir Ampin, a minor level. Then we start explaining, and this is what we're holding in the middle of right now, why Havayis da Abaya V'Rava Nikroim Davar Kot. Why are the discussions and the give and take of Torah Shabbat Peh, the different halachas and so on, why is that called a minor thing? Why is that called a small thing? So the Rebbe begins to explain that, first of all, the idea of Torah is that it was mislabish in dvarim gashmim, physical things. That itself is considered minor and small in comparison to ruchnis. Second point is, it comes into very detailed aspects. Allah is about the details. That shows on symptom, that shows on constriction. And therefore, there is the difference in Maisa Merkava and Havayis Abaya Berava is, the Rebbe says, Minakotza Lakotza, from one extreme to another extreme. By the Maisa Merkava, we're taking things higher. We're being Mailan, elevating the level of Adam Datzilus, which is the Eir Ampin, the small faces, to the level of Arich Ampin, the level of Gadol, the level of greatness. We're going up higher, from a state of symptom to a state of beyond symptom to a state of bleeding. Whereas in the level of Havayis Abaya V'Rava, it's just the other way around. We're bringing Hashem's will, which Hashem's Ratzim is infinite, and we're taking it down into the limitations of this world. So then the Rebbe goes on to explain that the Torah is also called, and he brings from this Maimon from the Rebbe Marash, why another reason why the Torah is called, Havayis Abaya V'Rava is called Davar Katan, because the Torah is enclosed in a mashal, or the Torah is a mashal for the Torah itself. Like the pasuk is Al Kain Yomer Mishal Hakadmoini, that the Torah is considered a mashal, a garment, a metaphor for the Torah itself. Therefore, always a mashal in regards and comparison to the nimshal is considered something minor and considered something small. So then the Rebbe explains different ideas, all these different reasons why they're necessary to explain about how Torah is cut. One aspect explains how Torah is cut because its very nature. One reason why Torah is called cut is because it's enclosed in Dvarim Ketanim, so we see the extreme differences between them. And then the last thing that we learned is about the bittul of the halacha of Torah to the Torah itself. That the very bittul of the halacha to the Torah itself reflects the bittul that a person needs to have when the person is learning Torah. So even though we said we left off on page Tes Vav, line 10, after my correction, I'd like to go back a page to begin from the beginning of that ois. Page view Daled, line 22, ois Zai. So I just now started repeating this, but let's learn it inside, because this is going to be the last part that we're going to explain about why Havayis Abaya V'Rava is considered a level of a dover cut. So he says, the Maimer of the Rebbe Marash from Tafresh Chavtes, 1869, continues. It's a Maimer from Parshat Baha'alotcha. It continues. Oid Bir Bazeh. Another explanation: the fact that Torah in the Kras dover cut, that Torah is called a minor thing. Shual Shem. It's because of the powerful bittul of the halacha in comparison to the infinite light of Hashem that's enclosed in the halacha. The commercial limit Torah, the tzaddik is with bittul, just like Torah study of a person needs to be in the way of bittul. Where and how do we express and do we see the idea of bittul of the Torah study of a person? So it says, the famous thing is Tam Lashoni Imrasech. It says that my tongue responds your sayings, what you say in the Torah. The Chazal derive from that, or Chassidus emphasize this in Torah, that it's ka'oina, when it uses the term ta'an hints at a certain way of saying things. It could have said, that David HaMelech and Tillim could have said an expression, I'm studying Torah, I'm reading in the Torah, Koida b'Torah, Loimed Torah, Oisik b'Torah. There's all different types of expressions. Medaber b'divrei Torah, Oimer divrei Torah. Uses specifically Tan. Tan hints at the idea of Oina Achar HaKoida. What does it mean, Oina Achar HaKoida? Means a responder. Like, the Chazan says something, and then the Kohol says right after him what the Chazan says. What does that mean? That means that when I'm responding, when I have a response by repeating after the Chazan, so then that doesn't mean that it's become initiated from me and myself and my ego. There is no self over here. There is no ego. It is completely, I am just continuing and just saying over what the Chazan is saying over. So the same thing is the true idea of the bittul of learning Torah, that when a person studies Torah, the ultimate way in it should be that his entire ego is removed. Obviously, he needs to put in his mind, he needs to put in his effort, and he needs to be mechadish b'Torah. But the ultimate way of doing that is to see himself completely as an instrument of detecting and deriving what Hashem's will is. So just like a person, when he studies Torah, has to be completely an instrument of Hashem's will in the Torah and of the Torah itself, so too the halachas of the Torah in regards to the Oil Sof, they also have that level of bit. That it's the last line on page Yudalit, concerning the halachas of the Torah themselves, that they are nullified before the infinite light that's enclosed in them. Kidla Kamon, as the Rebbe is going to elaborate upon this further on. Now the Rebbe says, in this understanding of Havayis, the Abaya Verava is a Dover cotton that is considered small because of its complete bittul, the Rebbe is going to contrast it with the simple meaning of cotton. Let's see this. Line 2 on page Tazayin, as well, excuse me. Yes, we could say the La Pirish cotton kipshuta in the simple meaning of cotton. When we say something is minor, minor is a relative term. How small is small? Atoyar davar cotton who be yachas le'inyanim acherim. When we say something is small, it's in comparison to other things that are bigger than it. I mean, you could say that this person is very small. The person is short. Or you could say this child is small. But a chicken is even smaller. So it's something that's relative. Yes, for people height, he's small. But pirush cotton al shem habit. But when we explain that cotton is because of bittul, the Rebbe is going to emphasize is not a relative aspect. Similar to what Yaakov said, that I've become bottle. I've felt myself be of no significance because of all the kindnesses that Hashem showed me, and the Rebbe is going to elaborate upon this pasuk a little bit more later on. The word cotton over here is referring to the Yid themselves. It's referring to the person themselves, or the Torah itself, whatever it is. Its state is a state of bittul. It's not about it is small in relationship to something else that's bigger. It's an atzmistic type of description. The thing itself is in a state of bittul. Tzarech lahavin, the Rebbe says we need to understand la pirish a cotton al shema bittul, according to the explanation that the reason it's called cotton is because of the bittul. Harigam merkava bittul haroichet. Also, a merkava is bottled to the rider. Became the kras dover gadol, and still no, it's called a dover gadol. Everything has to relate to what it's talking about before. There's the Maimer Chazal. Rabbi Yochanan calls the merkava dover gadol, and he calls Havayis Abaya V'Rava dover cotton. And one of the explanations why he calls Havayis Abaya V'Rava dover cotton, because they're in a state of bittul to the Oid and Sof. But look at that very same statement. Ma'aser Merkava. Merkava is also bottled to the Oid and Sof. So how do you call the Merkava a davar gadol, and the very same breath you call the Havayis the Abaya V'Rava davar cotton because it's bittul? Merkava, we said, is also about bittul. The whole idea of Merkava is about bittul. So the Havayis Abaya V'Rava is bittul, and the Merkava is bittul. So either both of them should be called cotton, or both of them should not be called cotton. So obviously, what the Rebbe is going to go on to explain is there are two types of bittul. That's the difference in the bittul of the Merkava versus the bittul of the Abaya V'Rava. And this is also going to tap into something that we mentioned before, that there's the bittul and the Kabbalah's oil of Nasa before Nishma, prior to the giving of the Torah. And then there's what was accomplished in the bittul once the Torah was given. Let's go on further, page Tesvav, where we left off last week, line 10. And the point of the explanation, this we could say, the bittul, let's call the minor thing, is shu bottle lagamri vein by shu mile. It is completely bottle and has no significance whatsoever. Like it says in the Geras HaKodesh, starting with the title Katointi, The person makes himself completely like remnants and excess. He considers himself that there's no need for him whatsoever. That is what the meaning of katan is. So just like Igeres HaKodesh says this, so when Yaakov Avinu said, "Katonti mikol achsadim," he looked at himself as completely remnants and excess and leftovers and of no importance and value whatsoever. From that, we derive that whenever we use the term katan, it's talking about such a bittul that has no value to it and no significance to it whatsoever. Rebbe is going to contrast that but to Merkava. Merkava is not that type of bittul. It's of a different form. He says in line 15, Merkava is a level of an existence. It does have some substance, some value, some significance. And not only does it have some significance, but yes, but to such a degree, it has an advantage over the rider. How does it have an advantage over the rider? The canal, like we said before, the rider can reach a place that through the Merkava, that without the Merkava, he wouldn't be able to reach over there. The vehicle takes him somewhere and brings him to a level that he wouldn't be able to reach without it. Therefore, by the Merkava, ain't a davar cotton. You cannot say it's a minor thing, because a minor thing means it has no significance whatsoever. In the explanation of the word cotton now, va'adra, just the opposite. Merkava is not just not cotton; it's the opposite of that. Because of the quality and the advantage that the Merkava has, that through the Merkava he goes up to the level of Gadol, the level of Arich. To such a degree, it identifies with its mission, since it's bringing it up to the level of Arich. And we said before, Arich Ampin is the great level, long faces, it's great, it's Kesser, it's higher than Seder Shtalshus. So the Merkava alone, which brings it to that level, is already identified with that level and called Gadol. So it's the polar opposite of what cotton is about, that cotton is nothing of itself whatsoever, no value of itself whatsoever. So the Rebbe goes on to say in line 21, the hilchos of Torah in the slapsh b'dvarim gashmim, the halachos of Torah that were enclosed in physical matters, pirush harishim b'davar cotton, the first explanation in a minor thing. What the first explanation that the Rebbe explained on the beginning of page, I think in the middle of page Yud Gimel, when he spoke about why Habayis the Abaya V'Rov is called the Davar Cotton, we said because it's dealing with physical. Physical is minor in comparison to spiritual. Since physical matters have no consequence and have no value, and in comparison to the wisdom and will of the Eibusher that's enclosed in them, therefore, because of that, the matters of Torah and mitzvahs, especially the matters of halachas of Torah, which has to do with the performance of mitzvahs, they are considered a completely bottled davar cut by day habitl shebalachas Torah atzmam, through the bittul that's to be found in the halachas of Torah itself. Because physical is completely insignificant in comparison to spiritual, it has no value in and of itself in comparison to spiritual. So when a person studies the halachas of the Torah, so those halachas that are bottled to the Ein Sof, they imbue the person that's studying the halachas with that bittul. So the bittul comes down also on the person that's involved in Torah study. That how, in what type of manner is he studying Torah? He's doing it like the pasuk says, like a responder, reading and repeating what the reader said. So we brought before these two levels of bittul. We said there's the bittul of the person studying Torah, and there's the bittul of the halachas Torah. Now the Rebbe is going to explain, or now the Rebbe just now explained that one is dependent upon the other. Because the halachas of the Torah are totally bottled to the Oirisov, because they have no significance to the Oirisov, therefore the person that studies Torah also reaches such a powerful state of bittul, greater than the bittul of the Merkava. Let's maybe hold off on the questions because I want to finish the mimer today. Okay, top of page to Zion Oisches. So we said that this mimer of the Rebbe Marash of Baha'aloischa, even though it's a Baha'aloischa mimer, of Baha'aloischa to Torah, etc. So the Rebbe is bringing us back to the topic of Matan Torah. That's what it says at the beginning of the Asar Sadibris. Hashem spoke all these matters to say, or saying, or to tell over. And very famous question, all the Mefarshim asked, Lamer to who? All the Yidden were there, all the Neshamas were going to be over there, were over there on Matan Torah. What's it mean that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu Lamer? There's different explanations, and there's the Chassidus explanation of what the word Lamer is. The Chassidus it's explained the Matan Torah, Nitna Koyach, limit Torah Shalom Adam year by from the Lamer. That by Matan Torah, we were given the power and capability that the Torah study of a person should be in a way of saying it, telling it. To repeat those words that Hashem says in a way of tam l'shaynim rasecha, in a way that my tongue is just repeating what and just responding and saying over what you're saying. In other words, that was the bittul that was accomplished by Matan Torah. That prior to Matan Torah, when it wasn't Vaydaber Elokim, it's called Dvarim Ha'elu Leimer, we weren't given that capability. Now the Rebbe is going to ask a question: why? We didn't have bittul before Matan Torah. There was Nasav Koydom Nishma. We had bittul already. It says in line 5, the L'chura Rigam L'fnei Matan Torah Yigdim Yisrael Nasav Nishma. Also, already before Matan Torah, Yidden said, "We will do before we will hear." Dagdom Nasav Nishma Hu bittul Abal Rotzen. We said before that the prefacing of Nasa before Nishma is that we are not just being mevatl ourselves to the laws and to the Torah, but we are being mevatl ourselves to the Eibishter who gave us the Torah. And that's why we said we will do. We don't even know what you're telling us to do. We will do it. So what is the uniqueness and what was the accomplishment of the lamer state of bittul, more so than the bittul of Nasa before Nishma? Here, the explanation this is the bittul of Hagdamas Nasal Nishma. He has an advantage. There is something that I am accomplishing. Hagdamas Nasal Nishma Kabols Oil Malchus. That when we accept upon ourselves, when we precede the Mass before Nishma, that means we are accepting upon ourselves the yoke of the king. We're saying whatever the king tells us to do. I don't know yet what he's going to tell us to do. We're coronating him. We're making him as a king. We said Nasa Kohen Nishma is reflected every day in saying Shema before Voyim Shemaya. First, we have to be Mikabel Malchusai, then be Mikabel Zeroisai. So it's Kabul so Malchus. That's what the idea of Nasa before Nishma. So now we are accomplishing something over here. When we accept the yoke of his kingship, so now the king becomes a king. Through the similar to the bittul of the Merkava, that through the bittul of the vehicle to the rider, through that it carries and raises up the roichim. So we are, by accepting Hashem as king, by saying Nas before Nishma, we are kaviyachol turning Hashem into a king and making him into a king. So therefore, it's not the ultimate bittul, because it's like the level of Merkava, davar gadol. Bittul the lamer shnis kaddish matan Torah bittul betachlis, and the bittul of lamer that came about by giving a Torah is a total bittul. Then the Rebbe is going to reflect how this is also in the mitzvahs as well. Derech the second paragraph, line 18. Ubekim a mitzvah matan Torah nitna koyach shekim a mitzvah shelo adam yeh betachlis. Bittul by matan Torah was given the power that the fulfillment of mitzvahs of a person should be in a total bittul. The way he fulfills the mitzvah should be Not because I was the one, it was me. I accepted the king as king, and therefore I am fulfilling the mitzvahs. That the command of Hashem decrees upon him, that the Hashem decrees, this is what needs to be done. Let's explain the Torah concerning the Seres HaDibros that was said by Matan Torah. Similar to this concerning all the commands in the Torah. It's not just by the Seres HaDibros. It's said both in a way of a command and in a future tense, similar to what we say about V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha could be a mitzvah of loving Hashem. It could also say you will love Hashem. The Alter Rebbe, the Torah says that the Seres HaDibros, which included the entire Torah, was said also in a way of you will honor your father and mother, and you should honor your father and mother, for example. How come? How does both of these things fit together? Because the very saying of Hashem, the very command of Hashem, decrees on the person and on the world and forces them to follow along in the whatever Hashem decreed. So that is a greater bittul than the bittul of Nasa before Nishma, where I accept Hashem as king upon myself. It's rather Hashem decrees and makes me bottle to him. Second paragraph on Yud Zayin. Shloimer, we could say da yisum bittul kima mitzvahs ba'ifun zeh. The gaba bittul the kabbalas oil, the advantage of the fulfillment of mitzvahs in such a manner, over just a bittul of accepting the yoke, meaning I accept Hashem as my king, who b'shnei yon involves two aspects. Lefisha bittul kabbalas oil why they show who kiba loveliest avdi shemal malacham lokal baruch. First of all, when there's kabbalas oil, it's the person. The person in his beingness accepted God as king. Even more so, when a servant is bottled to his master, even when he was a born servant, it's connected with his being. That's his identity. So it becomes who he is. The idea is that his identity is that he is the servant of the master. But the bittul of mitzvahs that we're talking about occurred by Matan Torah. It's more than that. It's my identity. Rather, it's impossible to be an existence in the world that is the opposite of the command of Hashem. The Rebbe in the footnote says this is similar to Kaf Aleim Har Kegigos. I'm not going to spend time on this now. Test. So the bittul of Torah, studying the fulfillment of mitzvahs in such a manner, is a complete bittul. The lamer aspect, more than Nasa before Nishma, since the Yid and Hashem are entirely one. This doesn't negate us. According to this, it comes out we have no existence whatsoever. We have no identity. We don't even have an identity of being a servant. He says, no. True, we have no identity, but our identity in Hashem becomes completely merged. This itself is the Metzius of the Yid, that he's one with Hashem. Zehu, now we come back to the original Maimer Chazal that the whole Maimer was talking about. If you will guard my candle, the Torah and the mitzvahs, I will guard your candle. The fact that Hashem is guarding. Guarding means that the candle, we said, exists, but he's doing something more for the candle, which means he's making the Yid reach a level more than the bittul of Merkava. He's helping the Yid reach a level of ultimate bittul. We call Malkim Ein Ze Shoyles Metzius, so it doesn't negate the existence of the Yid. It guards, it keeps, it maintains your candle, that your candle exists. This is also what Rashi explained in the pasuk. When you kindle and raise up the candles, that the flame should go up on itself by its own. Though the ascent of the fire by the candles being lit by the neshamas of the Yidden is that they're coming to a total bittul. That's the idea of Andi Meshameres Nercha that we spoke about earlier. It's in such a way that's associated with the candles, with the neshamas themselves. That the flame is going up on its own. It's his going up. Behind this means the limit of Torah bittul Torah study and from the mitzvahs in the state of bittul. And along with this, also with vitality and with joy. Since simcha breaks through boundaries, therefore through the joy of Torah, the joy of mitzvah, comes down all spiritual things and all physical things without limitations. Everybody has what they need. Any questions?